Welcome to Responding to a Security Incident, the 7th lesson of SEP 14, Maintain a Troubleshoot. In this video, I'll show you how to work with reports for incident response. Then we'll learn the best approach for handling a virus outbreak. In particular, how to handle malware and the life of a virus outbreak. At the end, you'll learn how to identify and resolve false positive issues in your environment. Let's get started. If you're troubleshooting an incident in progress or need to review client health, you can use the Logs tab under Monitors in the SEPM. Logs give you the ability to analyze the security status of the environment and modify the level of protection for client computers. Reports provide a daily or weekly health check of the environment. Use reports to review virus definition distribution, confirm that scans are running, and clients are communicating with the Semantic Endpoint Protection Manager. You can also analyze virus and attack trends, monitor security statistics, as well as provide data to management. A report gives you a snapshot of the environment. Proactively respond to new incidents with SEPM notifications. You can view information from notifications in the same way that you can see logs. Examples of notifications include risk outbreaks, an alert to notify you when remediation is needed. You can learn more about logs, reports, and notifications in the Semantic Endpoint Protection 14 Manage and Administer course. Create a filter that searches for left-alone detections in the risk logs. When a detection shows a result of left alone, it means that SEP was unable to remediate the threat. It could be a file is in use, or you don't have permissions for the file. Another sign of an incident in progress is a large amount of suspicious detections from sonar. If sonar is flagging a file as suspicious, it's possible that the environment is dealing with a new threat. You can find and respond to new incidents by filtering by suspicious for the action. If you know the attack source for the infection, you can create a filter to identify malicious traffic in the environment and the targeted endpoints. Examples of malicious traffic include port scans or communicating with a command and control server. For more information on this topic, see the KB on the screen. Scheduled reports run based on the interval that you configure. You send scheduled reports to a single recipient or a distribution list, but you must include the email address of at least one recipient. The SEPM product installation creates the Administrator Daily Summary Report during setup. This report provides virus detection counts, virus definition timeline, top 10 threats, and infections. You can enable this report so that it's generated every day. There is also an executive summary report that you can schedule to run once a week and shows threat activity in the environment. It provides data from the daily summary report, plus top 10 threats and infections, risk distribution by day, computer status, and a protection status snapshot. Executive Summary is helpful for conducting a health check and identifying what areas need further investigation. Or if you want to see all distribution reports and new risk information at the same time, run the Comprehensive Risk Report. For more information on creating scheduled reports, see the KB listed on the screen. Configure alerts on the SEPM so that you are notified of a potential security incident or when manual remediation is necessary. You'll receive an email notification whenever left-alone events occur. See the Semantic Connect article listed on the screen. In this topic, we'll talk about how to handle malware and work with support. But before we get started, let's take a look at the life of an outbreak. The first step is to identify what is abnormal. And when you suspect that something is abnormal, gather more information from your teams. If you do not already have an incident response team, create one. Members of the team should include IT directors for status updates, a help desk team lead, semantic support or a technical account manager, your Semantic Endpoint Protection Administrator, your network team, and an internet service provider contact. Next, find the infected system. SEP or other networking devices may have detected the threat. You can also identify infected machines by reviewing side effects, behavior, and attributes of the abnormality. When identifying an abnormality, isolate the infected computers. Risk Tracer is a good way to identify infected computers. It's an optional feature for incident response enabled in the high security policy. Risk Tracer records the source of the threat. This enables you to identify and repair the root of the virus outbreak. It also helps you decide which machines need to be isolated. For more information on how to use Risk Tracer, see the KBs on the screen. If malware is listening or running on a port, you can quickly create a SEP firewall rule to block the port. In virtual environments, you can use VLAN isolation to restrict ports and create an uplink through which the virtual machine only communicates. Also, you can configure group policy objects to enforce the Windows firewall configuration. Or, as a last resort, remove the machine from the network. Make sure not to power off the computer. You can use the SEP risk log to determine which machines are infected. For every endpoint, the risk log contains files detected by Insight, virus and spyware scanning, and sonar. You can also identify sonar events under monitors and logs. Insight defines detections in the risk name column as ws.reputation.1. For each Insight-related detection, the risk report also displays the domain or IP address from where the file was downloaded. For example, 10.10.2.1 or website.com. When you select by application in the View drop-down menu, a list of all blocked files and the prevalence of each blocked file is displayed. When choosing by web domain in the View drop-down menu, a list of blocked web domains is displayed. These domains can be one of the following: malicious domains, potentially legitimate domains that have a low reputation, and potentially legitimate files from websites. Next, list the machines that you plan to investigate and get your emergency flash drive ready. Now you're ready to isolate the threat. You can also identify malicious activity by running available tools such as Netstat. Traceroute and NSLookup are also excellent tools. You can look at the host file for unusual entries. Process Explorer and Process Monitor can also help you identify malicious activity. When you can't identify suspicious files, you can perform the actions shown on the screen. We'll cover each of these actions in more detail later in the video. Power Eraser and Threat Scan Analysis are used for repair and remediation. It provides aggressive scanning and analysis to resolve issues with heavily infected computers. Power Eraser is run remotely from the Symantec Endpoint Protection Manager console. There is not an option to run Power Eraser directly on the client, but you can download SymDiag and run a threat analysis scan. If you use SymDiag, detections don't appear in the Symantec Endpoint Protection Manager logs. After SymDiag completes the scan, detections appear in the local output. Power Eraser does not examine user-specific load points, registrations, and folders that SymDiag scans. Instead, it runs Power Eraser as the local system user. Make sure not to run Power Eraser and SymDiag at the same time. Otherwise, it could impact system performance. When running Power Eraser from the Symantec Endpoint Protection Manager, the first step is to start the Power Eraser analysis on one computer or a small group of computers. When it finishes, use the risk or scan log to review Power Eraser detections. Then request that Power Eraser remove any detections that you determine are threats. You can also acknowledge the detections that you want to ignore or leave alone. The Symantec Diagnostic Tool features a utility, the Threat Analysis Scan, that can help identify suspicious files on a system. The scan results allow you to save the file from SIMDiag. The output is used to assist support in troubleshooting an issue. For more information on the scan results, see the KB listed on the screen. To further isolate threats, you can enable network scanning and auto-protect. Enabling network scanning helps prevent malware from spreading and can identify threats in cases where auto-protect is not functioning on an infected remote computer. Some settings are turned off by default in the virus and spyware protection policy. When isolating a threat, you can increase the bloodhound sensitivity, sonar sensitivity, as well as the age and prevalence for Insight. For example, you may decide to change Insight settings because a new custom malware may be specifically crafted to attack your network. Finally, the traditional method of using network monitoring can also help to stop connectivity to the attacker's machine. You can enforce this directly on the endpoint or at the perimeter firewall. Network application monitoring tracks an application's behavior in the security log. If an application's content is modified too frequently, it's likely that a Trojan horse attacked the application and the client computer is not safe. An example of a less frequent change would be a patch installed on your system. In this instance, the computer is safe. You can use this information to create a firewall rule that allows or blocks an application. You can also configure the client to detect and monitor any application that runs and is networked. Network applications send and receive traffic. The client detects whether an application's content changes. If you suspect that a Trojan horse has attacked the application, you can use network application monitoring to configure the client to block the application. You can also set up the client to ask users whether to allow or block the application. You can also create rules in the application or device control policy, as shown on the screen. Rules include monitoring areas where threats frequently load and limiting the spread of an attack. If the threat is identified, determine if other computers are infected. You can do this by installing virus definitions on a single computer to ensure remediation works. After deploying definitions to the entire network, run a scan to determine which computers are infected. These steps should clean most infected computers, but if you have machines that cannot remediate, isolate them from the network. After the threat is identified, follow these rules when handling malware. If you have a file that you suspect to be malware, you can submit using the online threat submission form. After submitting the file, you'll receive a confirmation email. Use the tracking number when talking to Symantec support. After submitting the file, you can find out more information about the threat. Use Symantec Security Response to learn more about the threat. If Security Response identifies the file as a threat, usually within 2 hours, you'll see it here. The summary page provides an overall view of the threat. The technical details page provides more information about the threat. If you cannot remediate the threat, this page shows you the recommendations on how to remove the threat. After you've learned more about the threat, you can begin to remediate. The first step is to quickly assign the high security virus and spyware policy. Then download new content using Live Update or Intelligent Updater. Rapid release virus definitions have undergone basic quality assurance testing by Symantec Security Response. The primary focus of these definitions is the quick detection of newly emerging threats, and they may be augmented later with more robust detection capabilities. While Symantec Security Response makes every effort to ensure that all virus definitions function correctly, you should understand that rapid release definitions do pose some risk, such as higher potential for false positives. Rapid release definitions are most useful for perimeter defense or for all protection tiers as a means of mitigating a fast-spreading virus outbreak. For more information on rapid release definitions, see the KB listed on the screen. After content is installed, run a full scan, increase missed scheduled scans, and use monitors and reports to look for failed actions. Vulnerabilities are computer software flaws that can be exploited by malicious code. You can repair vulnerabilities by applying patches provided by the software vendor. In today's network environment, regular patching is a requirement. Every network should have a patch and configuration management policy for testing new patches and rolling them out to client computers. Patching plans must focus not just on operating systems and browser add-ons, but all deployed software. All software should be cataloged and regularly checked for updates. Internally developed code must be regularly audited for security holes and fixed as soon as possible. Appliances, such as routers and printers, must also be checked for software updates and quickly patched. It can be a lot to manage, however, it's vital to preventing security incidents. In this final topic, you'll learn how to identify and resolve false positive issues in your environment. A false positive is a genuine application or file detected as malware by one of SEP's protection technologies. The file may end up quarantined or removed. Among other detections, you can use the SEP risk log to identify and address false positives. For every endpoint, the risk log contains files detected by any Insight technology, virus and spyware scanning, and sonar. You can also identify sonar events in the sonar log. SEP identifies Insight files in the risk name column as ws.reputation.1. For each Insight-related detection, the risk report also displays the domain or IP address from where the file was downloaded. When you select By Application in the View drop-down menu, the logs display a list of individual blocked files and the prevalence of each blocked file. When you select By Web Domain in the View drop-down menu, a list of blocked web domains is displayed. These domains could be a malicious domain, potentially legitimate with a low reputation, or a potentially valid file from a website. The detailed event information allows you to analyze the details of the detection. Important information includes the event date and time, as well as the first and second action taken on the file. You can also see the source of the detection, for example, any Insight technology, virus scanning, or sonar. The detailed event information includes the detection method, for instance, scanning or heuristic technology. You can also see risk reputation data. In this example, SEP quarantined the file. The risk reputation shows how long Symantec has known about the file and the reputation. You can view the file's reputation, which is untrustworthy, and the file's prevalence. If you determine that the event is a false positive, you can allow the event. Allowing the event is also known as whitelisting. To add an application or domain from the risk log, select the event or events, then in the action field, click the plus sign. From the drop-down menu, choose to allow an application or trust a web domain. Future downloads of the chosen application or web domain are no longer blocked based on Insight reputation. Note that creating a trusted web domain exception does not prevent other SEP technologies from blocking the file. Additional exceptions may be needed for scans, sonar, and application control. For instructions on how to add an exception for a file or domain, see the Installation and Administration Guide and refer to Managing Exceptions. Symantec wants to resolve false positive detections. Having a submission not only allows Symantec to correct the current issue, but it also allows Symantec to study the causes of the false positive to prevent problems in the future. False positive submissions can be made immediately to Symantec using a web form. All suspected false positives must be submitted to submit.symantec.com/falsepositive. To resolve false positives for download Insight detections, send the file or the SHA-256 value. After processing the submission and whitelisting of the file, the Quarantine Rescan feature moves the file from quarantine and restores the file to its original location. Sonar might inject some code into applications that run in Windows user mode. Sonar injects code to monitor for suspicious activity. In some cases, the injection might affect the application performance or cause problems with running the application. You can create an exception to exclude the file, folder, or application from this type of monitoring. For more information on sonar injection, see the KB listed on the screen. When facing a false positive issue with sonar, create an exception. To verify the exception is in place, you can use Process Explorer to see if umengx86.dll is still present in your application as an injected process. If umengx86.dll is still there, ensure the updated policy is applied to the group. Semantic endpoint protection does not detect known good files as malware. To ensure that your files are known as good, Symantec recommends the following best practices. First, provide feedback and ensure that the most recent Symantec whitelists are installed on the SEP and client. Next, create exceptions, adjust file sensitivity, and use digital signatures. Finally, add custom software to the Symantec whitelist and test your environment. In this lesson, you identified and examined useful SEPM reports. You also learned the best approach to handling a virus outbreak. Finally, you learned how to identify, submit to Symantec, and prevent false positives. For more information about the topics discussed in this lesson, refer to the resources listed on the slide and remember to frequently check the Symantec support website. Thank you for watching this lesson video.